Well, this is going to be more of a solution-based approach to our current crisis we have on the highest court in the land, besides, a venting session about judges per se. I might touch on that, but I don't think that that's really germane to the solution-based kind of workaround that I've crafted. So, we know that the Supreme Court is kind of mired in a crisis, a partisan crisis. And, this is kind of not surprising in my opinion, because look at how it functions. Supreme Court justices are appointed by the president, right? Presidents are elected. They're partisan positions. We've only had Republican and Democrat presidents. So we have judges appointed to the Supreme Court from Republican administrations and Democrat administrations. And the Supreme Court justices, these are lifetime positions, meaning once they get on the court, they can serve until death. A lot have. Some have retired before they transitioned, but, some haven't. So it's a lifetime appointment. Now, at one point in time in our country's history, senators were appointed, by the states. You didn't have direct democracy in terms of electing your United States senators. And there was a workaround to make that not the case anymore, to where now we elect senators. To me, you all, I believe we should elect Supreme Court justices. Now, somebody will say they're judges. That would make it partisan. But it's already a partisan process. If a Democrat president selects a judge, more than likely they're going to have kind of Democrat belief systems. If a Republican selects a Supreme Court justice, more than likely they're going to have Republican belief systems. So by nature of how the process works, it's already partisan. This idea that a Supreme Court justice is not a partisan position is complete and utter bullshit at this point. This current Roberts Court has exposed that. The emperor has no more clothes. They've gone out of their way to protect Republicans, to disenfranchise minority people as much as they can, stripping away, the Voting Rights Act, hollowing it out. They've gone out of their way to, allow for racial gerrymandering of congressional districts that benefit the Republican Party. This is completely naked partisan discord in terms of how conservative, how Republican it is, okay? So this is not, this is not fooling anybody at this point. So my solution is this. The current 9 justices, they can serve for life, right? Because it would be no sense in changing this rule for those people who are already on the court. However, new justices who are appointed, I believe they should be appointed for 10 years by the president, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whoever. Once they get selected and they get approved by the United States Senate, they can sit on the court for 10 years. After their 10th year, we the people should be able to vote for them if they want to seek an extension to their 10-year term. If they choose to leave after that initial 10 years, fine. Then a new president can appoint somebody, whoever the president is, and they can serve for 10 years. Once they're up again after their 10 years, if they don't want to step down, then we the people can vote for them after 10 years. I don't think these partisan people should have lifetime appointments on the Supreme Court. I just don't think that that's fair to us, the citizenry. You know, if they're going to be nakedly partisan, then we should, as citizens, have a choice in direct democracy as to whether we want the court to remain nakedly partisan one way or the other. We should have a choice. Because right now, this Supreme Court in its current incarnation is totally out of lockstep with the American citizenry. The American citizenry has shown overwhelmingly that we support reproductive care for women. Yet this court decided that they were just going to take away a fundamental right of American citizens. Never before done before. Same thing with affirmative action. They just decided they were going to do away with affirmative action. That was something, you know, that they didn't come and ask the citizenry, did we support affirmative action or not? That wouldn't have been put to a vote. So what we're going to have, or what we're going to see, is activist conservative attorney generals, prosecutors go run into the Supreme Court willy-nilly and get, you know, things reversed or taken away from citizens, their rights, because certain people in the country don't agree with certain people having rights and liberties and freedoms. To me, they're acting in a partisan legislative manner now, and that shouldn't be allowed. We should have a right to consent as to whether we agree with what these partisan justices on the court are doing. You know, at some point, this country, you know, you can't continue talking about democracy, 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 and then you have ill-democratic processes and structures latent in your system. And then you want to talk about everybody else's system, but you don't want to talk about improving your own. This, to me, would be an improvement on our system. And I'm not saying that every federal judge should be up for election. No, I'm saying that the Supreme Court justices should. Because if you're going to make highly partisan decisions for the entire nation that's going to have lasting ramifications for every American, then we should have a right to determine whether we agree with those decisions after a 10-year basis. Yeah, give us the right as citizens to advise and consent, just like we do in the legislative process, just like we do with the executive process. The judicial process was supposed to be non-political, but now we see Justice Alito, Justice Clarence Thomas. We see them being naked partisans. There's no, you know, there's no shred of, you know, neutrality with what they're doing. Justice Thomas, his wife, contacted state senators in Arizona, telling them to overturn the free and fair election results of Arizona. Okay? That's partisan. And he can say, you know, well, it wasn't me directly, it was my wife, as Alito is trying to say in terms of, you know, the flag controversy. But you know what? That's not going to cut it. If there is even an air of, you know, bias, or you have some type of, you know, gain, something to benefit, you're supposed to recuse yourself as a judge. This more than definitely meets the recusal threshold. These two men are claiming their wives are highly partisan, yet they claim they can impartially determine matters that their wives are directly involved in. The matters before the court is something that they will benefit from directly, and yet they're not recusing themselves. So the era of the judiciary being nonpartisan, that's over with. Conservatives, you've blown that. So now we have to counter it. This afternoon, I'm calling on the United States House and Senate to craft a constitutional amendment to directly elect Supreme Court justices. It wouldn't affect the current court or the current court members. However, all future court members would be impacted. I believe there needs to be a constitutional amendment now where we, the people, can vote after 10 years to retain a Supreme Court justice. That needs to be included in any and all ethics packages that the Senate is currently crafting pertaining to the Supreme Court. We want to vote on who these people are after 10 years. No more lifetime appointments for partisan judges. Yeah, that whole bullshit about them not being partisan and impartial and listening to rulings, listening to the matters before the court before making a decision, that's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And we want a say in it. Or else don't continue to call yourself democracy. Because the Supreme Court is not acting democratic. And the only way, the only solution, in my opinion, is for we the people to fix this. Because I don't believe Congress nor the executive can. They're partisan by nature. So now it falls on us, the people. To me, I've always felt that we should, vote to retain the Supreme Court justices. I've always felt that they should get like about 10, maybe 20 years max on the court, and then they're up for a vote. That should be our determination whether we want to maintain a certain direction of the court. Because a president will come and go. But these judges, look how long Clarence Thomas is currently the longest serving Supreme Court justice right now. He was put on the court back in the 90s. Yeah, he was placed on the court back under George Herbert Walker Bush Sr., the late Herbert Walker Bush Sr. He's still on the court. Yeah, no. He should have been up for election to determine whether we wanted to maintain his ass or not. And see, this is what this would do. It would make a determination on our part as individual citizens whether we want to retain a judge or not. Because, if they have lifetime appointments, to me, that's a threat to our democratic process. We now know that Judge Clarence Thomas is bought and paid for by Harlan Crow, Leo Wise. These are all, conservative activists. They've taken this man jet setting all over the world. Private yachts, paid for his family, his mother's home, his kids to go to university. And then he said there's nothing there where he has directly benefited from the court in terms of his rulings. He's a liar. Because the people who have lobbied for certain legislation, people like Harlan Crow, they bribed him out. He's bought and paid for. Harlan Crow, think about this. Is it any coincidence that Harlan Crow is against affirmative action, is against reproductive rights for women, is against all of these racial gerrymandering cases, and Clarence Thomas just magically happens to be, ruling in the way that Harlan Crow, who is bought and paid for him and his whole family, that to me doesn't strike me as a coincidence. That doesn't strike me as a coincidence. No. This man is bought and paid for by a handful of wealthy, rich, conservative white men. And he's ruling exactly the way they want him to. No. We need a constitutional amendment to the United States Constitution allowing for direct voting of Supreme Court justices after 10 years. They can't have lifetime appointments anymore. They had that privilege and they abused it. And now there needs to be some constraints put in on the judiciary because it looks like the Supreme Court is running rogue. That's what it looks like to me. So there needs to be constraints put on it. Once you have a privilege and you abuse it, that's it. Then you have to be, reined in, so to speak. And I think this would be good because, it would be a national election. If the majority of people in the country wanted to retain a Supreme Court justice, so be it. Think about it like this. It's that way in the states already. If you have every state has a state Supreme Court. And all the state Supreme Court justices are up for election. You get to vote on them. We the people in our states. To me, all I'm saying is that should be expanded out to the Supreme Court. It should be the same thing. I don't think that's too controversial when we're already doing it at the state level. Yeah, after 10 years, they should be up on the ballot. And we get to choose. Somebody can run up against them. Because think about it like this. How many, judges, young people do we have who are qualified to be on the Supreme Court? A lot. A lot. And yet, they can't be on the Supreme Court, or they have no avenue to get onto the Supreme Court because one person gets appointed for life. So we have justices, Supreme Court justices in these states. They would be good Supreme Court justices for the entire United States, but they don't even have a chance of being ever appointed because there's no avenue for them to be appointed. There's no avenue for them to get that job. No. I believe Supreme Court justices after 10 years of an appointment by a president should come back to the people and have to seek election. And we should have to either retain them or, not retain them. It should be our choice. And that needs to be put into a constitutional amendment. Yeah. I would start crafting a constitutional amendment. If I'm just telling you what I would do if I was in the legislative process, I would not let the United States Supreme Court run willy-nilly over me. They're a co-equal branch. Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, the Chief Justice, he's been saying that it's not the legislative's it's not their territory to tell the judicial branch what to do. He opposes the ethics package. Well, that's up for dispute, But what I will say is this. The executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch are co-equal branches of the government, the way it's supposed to work. And you can't tell another co-equal branch, especially when you overturn laws that the legislative branch passes, you can't tell them that they have no right to, legislate you when you legislate them. Imagine that, a co-equal branch telling another co-equal branch, you have no right to touch us, but then we can overturn the laws that you pass. That's not being co-equal, in my opinion. So the executive, the executive branch, to me, what they should do, I've always believed this should be the case too. There shouldn't just be 9 Supreme Court justices. There should actually be 13. There should not be 9, there should be 13. And, the next 4, because there's 9 now, I believe President Biden, if he gets reelected, he should expand the Supreme Court. I would put 4 more justices on the court. There's there's nothing in the Constitution that says that the Supreme Court has to be 9 justices. In fact, at one time there were more than 9 justices. They decided to reduce it to 9. And the Republicans have been going back and forth about how you can't expand the court, but there's no, show me anywhere in the Constitution where you cannot expand the Supreme Court. I believe there should be 13 justices on the Supreme Court, and I believe the next appointments, the next 4 appointments, they should not be lifetime appointments. They should be 10-year terms, and then after their 10 years, they come and seek re-election, if they so choose to. And once the 9 that are currently on the court are replaced, every time a new justice is replaced with an old justice member who wouldn't be a part of this new 4 cohort, they would be up for re-election too. So eventually you would get to the point where all 13 justices at some point were seeking re-election. We have to start, on a side note, we have to start thinking about ways to make this country more democratic. It's not as democratic as people think it is. The system is not as democratic as our legislators would like to pretend that it is. Because right now, the vast majority of citizens are saying, abort the court. Fuck the court. You shouldn't have all of this sentiment out here if you're in line with what the people's sentiment is. But they're completely out of line with what the sentiment is. They're taking away rights of whole entire American citizens. Yeah. Without any recourse. Like in Louisiana, the governor is fixing to pass a law where now they're not just in your doctor's office, now they're up in your medicine cabinet. They're fixing to say that mifepristone, an FDA-approved drug back in the 1990s, is a controlled substance. Fixing to tell you if you have mifepristone, if you're a woman and you take that, you're taking an illegal substance and you can be criminalized or go to jail for having mifepristone, even though the FDA has approved it. So I told you all the Republicans weren't going to just stop in your doctor's office with your OBGYN. I told you they were going to be up in your medicine cabinet. Next, they're going to be up in your purse telling you you can't get condoms. They're going to be at Walgreens telling you Plan B, the morning after pill. It's no end with these crazy dudes. It's no end with them. They're old, out of touch, and they got a disdain for women. That's what it is. I hate to say it. It's all about power, control, domination, and a disdain. A deeply held disdain. They try to act like they like women. No, they like what women can do for them. They don't like women. Let's be honest about it. They don't like women. They like if a woman can do something for them. You cook, you can clean, you can have their babies, and you can have sex with them. That's it. That's your role as a woman. You start talking about you want to work. You hear what they say? Shh. It's crazy. It's crazy. So, we want to have direct voting for these Supreme Court justices. After 10 years, I think that's fair. You're on the bench for 10 years on the Supreme Court. Then that's a good enough time to do some stuff, to have cases before you. If you're like Clarence Thomas, we wanted Clarence Thomas gone a long time ago. The vast majority, let me be honest with you, the vast majority of Americans never wanted Clarence Thomas on the court. We didn't want Brett Kavanaugh on the court. Some of these people we didn't even want on the court, period. Clarence Thomas and Brett Kavanaugh had accusations that they were abusers of women. serious, credible allegations that they had abused women. And yet they were put on the court by Republican men, Republican presidents. Yeah. We had serious reservations about them. Serious reservations. Seriously. And yet they were rammed down our throat, and now we don't have any recourse. They're just on there for life. So this has to change. They have to expand the court, put 4 more justices on there, and those 4 new justices, once their 10 years is up, they have to run for office. I don't care if a Democrat puts them on the court or a Republican. The next 4 justices, they get 10 years, and then we, the people, get to vote to retain them or not to retain them. We've got all these justices all across America that want to sit on the Supreme Court, but they have no way of getting on the court because they put these people on the court for life. So if we get a rogue justice like Clarence Thomas, if we get a corrupt justice like Clarence Thomas, if we get somebody that's bought and paid for by the wealthy and the billionaire class like Clarence Thomas, we can't get his ass off. And you can't impeach him because the Republicans won't impeach him for shit. This man could be breaking the law. No, that's right, he did break the law. They got a lot of nerve. They wanted to put Marilyn Mosby in jail for 40 years for some documentation error she did. But this man did a documentation error, and he's sitting on the Supreme Court. This man is taking bribes from Harlan Crow. His whole family is bought and paid for. Harlan Crow paid for his whole family to go to university. He paid for his whole mother's house to be refurbished and repaired. Took him all around the world on private jets and yachts. And this man tells you he's not conflicted. He's not conflicted. He can make determinations about things. The hell he can. This is a complete and utter embarrassment what we're looking at. And I don't know how people can sit there and talk about democracy. These people that talk that stuff off the side of their mouth, they gotta stop talking that shit. They really gotta. It's insulting when I hear it. It's insulting. I know it's not true. I don't know who they're fooling. Maybe they talk to low IQ people, so yeah, maybe they'll buy it. That man is coming. When I tell you that man, Clarence Thomas, is completely bought and paid for, I mean completely. There's nothing he won't do that them rich billionaires have told him he needs to do. Now that's a problem. That's a serious problem. And we can't do anything about it because he's got a lifetime appointment. We got to wait till he drops, till he kicks the bucket. Yeah. Literally, young Americans, that's the way the system works right now. You got to wait till a corrupt Supreme Court Associate Justice kicks the bucket in order to deal with the situation. He won't go. No, he won't be, he won't exercise any dignity and say he's completely corrupt. No. You expect somebody corrupt and a criminal to say, I'm corrupt and a criminal and I'm going to leave now? You expect that? When has that ever happened in all of human history? Literally, they got to slap handcuffs on people. Look at Trump. He's still trying to run for president. He's got 91 felony indictments. So the Republican Party, we know, is corrupt as hell. They don't do anything about their corruption. They talk about President Biden, but look here. The DOJ is prosecuting Bob Menendez, a Democrat senator out of New Jersey. They just indicted Henry Cuellar, a Democrat congressman out of Texas. So, they can say all the shit they want to. The DOJ went after Sam Bankman-Fried. He was the biggest contributor of the Democrats in 2020 in terms of crypto. So, no. Democrats actually prosecute people who commit crimes. It's Republicans that want to have a candidate with 91 felony indictments. Don't get it twisted. Yeah. To me, the Republicans in the Senate should be telling Clarence Thomas he has to go. But no, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. Because are they telling Donald Trump he needs to stand down with 91 felony indictments? They say get this, you all. They say if a jury of his peers convicts him, they're even more likely to vote for him. Yeah. They're telling you straight to your face, if this man is a convicted felon, which is a high possibility, we'll find out shortly. They're telling you if this man is a convicted felon, they'll still vote for him. Yeah, yeah. The party of law and order, never forget. But the laws don't apply to them, they just apply to us. They want us to follow the law. Now you be a convicted felon. You know, this is the same party that wants to lock up Crystal Mason. Yeah. This is the same party that makes it extremely hard for convicted felons all across the South who have served their sentences to even, gain back their rights as a citizen to vote. In Florida, there's 1.2 million people who are felons, who are eligible to vote, who they make it difficult to even register to vote. But yet this man who might potentially be a convicted felon, they're talking about they can make him president. The party of law and order. Yeah, we believe that. We buy that all right. Yeah, sure. I got a bridge to sell you too. It's in Terabithia, but you got to go through Alaska by way of Hawaii. Yeah. I mean, if one person is going to tell you some complete and utter bullshit, somebody else might as well too. So you all, to me, there is a remedy. They have to come before the people, these Supreme Court justices. We have to allow new justices to run up against these justices. And if the old justice wins, then yeah, they get back to another 10 years on the court. They should serve in 10-year intervals, is what I'm saying. Every 10 years, they should be up for re-election. That's a fair concession. Neither party would benefit from that necessarily, and neither party would lose out from that necessarily. It's a fair democratic mechanism being put in place to check the judicial system. Yeah, because they're a co-equal branch and they're trying to act like they're not co-equal to nobody. No, they're not going to like what I'm saying. Of course, people that think they're above everybody are not going to like being told that we have to come and, the city, on a side note, see, this is why they don't fuck with me so much. Because I'm always advocating for we the people, what it actually is supposed to be. We the people are supposed to make a lot of these decisions, and they try to take the power out of our hands, usurp our power, and put it in the hands of a small few, and make it where, they stretch out their time, their tenure, to where all of us might die before we see any type of change. So really they spit in the faces of us, the citizenry. Really, in my opinion, that's what they do. We pay the Supreme Court justices' salaries. They're federal employees, meaning our taxpayer dollars go towards them. I don't really feel comfortable having my taxpayer dollars go towards Alito and Thomas. I don't agree with January 6th insurrection attacks on the Capitol. Justice Alito and his wife do. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with Clarence Thomas because his wife tried to overturn a free and fair election. Yeah. So I and the whole host of citizens, all 330 million of us, should have a recourse after a certain amount of time to make a determination as to whether we want to retain the justices on the Supreme Court or not. This is not, some crazy outlandish idea. They'll try to say that this is, anytime, also, another thing, anytime you try to add some democratic processes onto supposedly a democratic country, they try to say that you're a Marxist. Yeah, this is another talking point from them. I don't, sticks and stones may break my bones, but name calling doesn't. I don't give a damn. This is necessary because we've got huge problems. This man is bought and paid for by Harlan Crow, Clarence Thomas, bought and paid for. He might as he yeah, Harlan Crow is his sugar daddy. Yeah. You know how certain young women, when they go to university, they try to find sugar daddies. They had a whole website, sugardaddy.com, where they would find rich men to pay for their tuition and all the things, their dorms and all the things that they want when they're at university. They have these sugar daddies. Well, Clarence Thomas, he's got a sugar daddy in Harlan Crow. Yeah, these men are bought and paid for. And now, if they want to talk about the legislative branch where politicians are bought and paid for, well, now we know Supreme Court justices are bought and paid for too. So if our Congress members have to be up for re-election every 2 years, every 6 years, every 4 years, then our Supreme Court justices have to be up every 10 years. 2, 4, 6, 10. Congress members every 2 years, presidents every 4 years, senators every 6 years, and now I'm saying Supreme Court justices every 10 years. Yeah, there's got to be some changes around here. I know they're not gonna like this. I know. I already can tell. Anytime I talked about, emerging new ideas for the financial sector, mum's the words on what I said. It's like crickets. They heard what I said, though. They heard what I said. And remember, I told you it might not be now, but it's going to be for later. Yeah. Yeah. So this might not be for now either, but it's definitely going to be for later. It's definitely something we're going to circle back to in 2025, 2026. Because if I'm around, I'm going to still make noise about it. And I would recommend other citizens do as well. We want to have elections for these Supreme Court justices after 10 years. I don't care whether they need to put it in an ethics package, whether they need to have another constitutional amendment. I don't care how they do it. We want direct democracy on the Supreme Court. Because the reason why they were able to get lifetime appointments is because they always said that it was a nonpartisan, the judiciary is supposed to be nonpartisan. But this Roberts Court is the most partisan court in all of American history. The most activist court in all of American history. They're trampling the citizens' rights left and right. They're taking our rights away willy-nilly. Every day it seems like they're taking the rights away from citizens. And we have no recourse to course correct this at this point. We're just at the mercy of really billionaires owning Supreme Court justices. That's what it's looking like. That's what it's looking like, that's what it's feeling like, and that's what it is. I'm just telling you what it is. Harlan Crow paid for everything in Clarence Thomas and his family's life. It's nothing that Harlan Crow, this is a billionaire dude. And there's nothing that this man has not done for Clarence Thomas. So why would he not do anything that Harlan Crow wants him to do? If I pay for your mother's home, if I pay for you to jet set and be on my private yacht, if I pay for your children, your grandchildren to go to university, why wouldn't you do everything that I tell you to do? This man is trying to act like he has some judicial independence. He doesn't. That's a farce. And it doesn't look like the United States Senate can do anything about him, which is a shame, because they're supposed to act as a check and balance to the judiciary. They're supposed to advise and consent. They're supposed to be the greatest deliberative body in the world's history. And yet it looks like they're at a standstill. They can't do nothing about him. He should be impeached and removed. He's clearly in violation of the law. I don't know what to tell you. So when you have this type of situation happen, then we the people have to get out there and say, look, we want some changes around here. It's a shame that I'm one of the few people, folks that have to do it. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Everybody else is trying to act like they don't want to say nothing. They don't want to see nothing. They don't want to hear nothing. Yeah, going along with this. Well, I know why, too. Somebody said, why are people going along with it? Because the Supreme Court is the most powerful court in the land. They can ruin people. We're just ordinary citizens. They can ruin you. So this is how abuses happen in democratic countries, because you don't have enough safeguards in place. They keep talking about our institutions held under Donald Trump. Did they? Did they? I don't know. Not looking at the Supreme Court, it doesn't look like it. And you got Democrats who are too weak to expand the court. They keep complaining about Clarence Thomas and how he should be impeached. Well, if he's not going to be impeached, and if Justice Alito doesn't want to recuse himself after this New York Times bombshell about what he's been doing, you should, decide to put some new justices on the court. The Democrats, they have to stop whining and complaining like babies when they're grown adults. If there's a remedy to the problem, then you have to do what the remedy is. Stop trying to act like there's no remedies to the problem. There's no solutions to this crisis. There's solutions. They're not willing to do it. So as long as you're not willing to, do what's necessary, somebody else that is willing to do what they want to do is going to continue to play fast and loose. For sure, 2 more justices should be put on the court now. For sure. There definitely should be 11. Because to me, Justice Samuel Alito and Justice Clarence Thomas are acting rogue. They shouldn't be honored right now as 2 Supreme Court justices. They're acting rogue. They know they should recuse themselves in all matters involving Donald Trump, but they haven't, have they? So you say the Republicans are going to whine and complain if you put 2 more justices on the court. Well, the 2 justices that are acting in a rogue manner were both appointed by the Republicans, right? Confirmed by the Republicans, right? So who the hell cares of what they're going to yell and scream? The court is already partisan. Who doesn't know that? So you care more about what somebody is going to say than doing the right thing? Yeah, that's the Democrats for you. See why I don't fuck with the Democrats either like that? Yeah. Because they're never willing to do what's necessary. They just complain about the situation. They're typical. They complain about a situation, but there are solutions to the situation. You can put the Supreme Court, you can put the Supreme Court in order real quick. If I'm the president, I'm signing an executive order where I expand the court, and I'm going to put 2 more justices on the court, because 2 justices that's currently on the court are operating in a rogue and, in essence, illegal manner. That's what I'm doing. Period. And as long as I'm the president, they can stay on the court because it's an executive order. See, I don't like when Democrats have power, they're not willing to use it. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Because what's the point of you winning if you're not willing to use your power? They're like, oh, that would be an abuse of power. You don't think Clarence Thomas and Justice Alito are abusing their power currently? I do. I believe they're abusing their power currently. You know, so, you know, I'm just saying, me personally. I can't speak for nobody else. I'm just saying, me personally, as a citizen, I don't like this. It doesn't even reek of impropriety. It is impropriety. You say it kind of seems like it's impropriety. No, it is impropriety. Look into the situation. How are you going to address a matter in regards to the former president when both of their wives were directly involved with supporting the insurrection? Make it make some sense, because it doesn't make any sense to me. That I'll wait. I'll probably be waiting for a while though. And like I said, after 10 years, this doesn't affect any political party, really. Because the presidents only serve 8 years, right? So chances are the president that appointed the Supreme Court justice, they won't even be president anymore. It'll be a new president when the Supreme Court justice is up for re-election. Well, you know, Supreme Court justice races in these states, they're already partisan, right? Even though it's a nonpartisan kind of election, wasn't that Wisconsin Supreme Court justice race very partisan? And these justices on the Supreme Court, they lied to United States senators. Senator Murkowski and Senator Collins said that these justices, Amy Barrett Cooley and Brett Kavanaugh, they lied. They said that they weren't going to reverse Roe. And then they reversed Roe. Because they said they never would have voted for them had they known that they were going to overturn Roe. So, if these things that's going to be before the court are highly partisan anyway, you can't say that by definition the justices aren't partisan. They're nonpartisan when they're deliberating and ultimately making rulings about partisan things. See, that never made any sense to me, trying to act as though the Supreme Court justices are nonpartisan. No, they're not, because they're ruling on partisan matters. They have an opinion, they have a bias towards a thing. Especially if a conservative Republican appointed them to the court. Come on now. This is where they try to play stupid with us. They try to think we're stupid, but we're not stupid. We know what's going on. So what I'm saying is, I think this is a solution. They serve for 10 years, and then they come on the ballot, and then we get to determine whether we want to retain them or not. I think that's fair. That's a fair solution for conservatives in America, and that's a fair solution for liberals in America. This whole notion that the court isn't partisan or political, all of that has been dispelled now. All of that has been dispelled. That's yesterday's news. So now that that charade has been, kind of exposed, now we might as well make the whole thing where it's determined by we the people. Are they going to say that we can't make good decisions about who we think should be on the Supreme Court? Because that would have to be the alternative solution that they would have to come up with. Say that we can't make our own best decisions about who should serve on the Supreme Court. But wait a minute. We can make determinations about who should be our Congress members. We can make determinations about who can be our senators. We can make determinations about who can be our president. But then we can't make determinations about who can be our Supreme Court justices. Make it make some sense. So we're smart enough to determine who should be president, senator, and Congress, but we're not smart enough to determine who should be our Supreme Court justice. No. I got them boxed in 10 ways to Sunday. They can try to run that shit on y'all if they want to, but they'll never say that to me because they know I'll counter it. I'll tell them, if we're smart enough to make determinations about who can be president, who can be senator, who can be congressman, who can be our state Supreme Court state Supreme Court justices, and we can determine who can sit on the highest court in the land. We can make some determination. We can figure it out. I tell them what they always tell us. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We'll definitely figure it out. The citizens who vote, we'll figure it out. Let us figure it out. 10 years. That's it. And then you go on the ballot. There's got to be some changes around here because, the more democratic processes they put into a democracy, the better. A lot of people are getting to the point where they're getting over this. They're like, this is not working for us. So when you get to that type of point, that's when you start needing to add things in to make it work better for the people. I don't really think anybody, even a partisan person, I don't really think anybody can dispute this. Because in an election, you don't know who's going to win. It's up to the voters. Yeah. So you all tell me what you think. Should we be allowed as citizens to vote on the Supreme Court justices after 10 years? The president will still appoint them. The Senate will still confirm them. But then after they serve 10 years, it would be no more lifetime appointments. 10 years. Then if they got re-elected, they would serve another 10 years. If they decided to run again, they would serve another 10 years. So 10-year intervals. I think that's fair. I think that's a good process. I think it's more democratic. Something like Clarence Thomas would be prevented. Something like Samuel Alito could be prevented. Yeah. Because when you tell somebody they have a lifetime appointment, yo. I'm not saying always the people will commit crimes, but the chances of impropriety are much higher. Much higher. The Supreme Court, they don't even want an ethics package. Now, other judges all across America, they have to have ethics. They have to have some type of rules they abide by. Here it is, the highest court in the land, they don't even have to have any rules they abide by. I mean, that's just ripe for criminality, if you ask me. Any system, if there is no kind of set ethics in place, somebody with a lot of money is going to come along and usurp the system. I don't fault Harlan Crow for doing what he did. He just saw the system that way, and he came in and bought and paid a Supreme Court justice. It's only 9 of them. Now think about it this way. If George Soros had done that for a liberal justice, you'd have congressional hearings going on right now. They talk about George Soros funded DAs, but you can fund a DA. A DA is an elected official. They run on a ballot. We, the people, get to vote for them. But they'll never talk about Harlan Crow. They'll never talk about Rebecca Mercer. They'll never talk about Miriam Adelson, the late Sheldon Adelson. They'll never talk about Jeffrey Yass. Conservatives, you have more billionaires who fund you, who give money to your causes than any other group of people in the history of this country or in the history of the planet. Pretty much every billionaire in this country is a conservative. Shocking. Who's shocked or surprised by that? To the point where they went and found a rich billionaire criminal by the name of Donald Trump and made him their cult leader for their entire party. And then they'll talk about one rich person who happens to contribute money to the other party and villainize him. George Soros. You'll never hear them talk about, Dick Uihlein. They'll never talk about Jeffrey Yass. They'll never talk about Harlan Crow. They'll never talk about Rebecca Mercer. And the list goes on and on and on. So, to me, I think this is a fair concession, on all sides. Whoever the president is that appoints the Supreme Court justice, they'll get 10 years. And then if it's a Democrat president that appoints a liberal judge, they'll have to run on the ballot probably against a conservative. And we'll have to, if we support the liberal justice, enough of us will have to come out and vote. If they lose, then the conservative justice gets on the court. What I'm calling for is the same way it's done in all 50 states and territories in this country. Your state Supreme Court justice is elected. Your United States Supreme Court justice should be elected too. That's all I'm saying. They should get a 10-year term, and then their name should be put on a ballot. And we, the people, should make a determination as to whether we want to retain that justice or not. Period. I know the Supreme Court is not going to like having their lifetime appointment taken away from them. Senators didn't like having to be elected by the people. They liked having it be a backroom deal in the state legislators where their friends could be appointed, their family members. But it was a necessary change to make a democracy better, having direct voting of United States senators. This is a necessary fix and change to make democracy better, electing Supreme Court justices after 10 years. It is what it is. You have to, on a side note, you have to tinker around with things and make changes to things when they're stale, worn out, not working well. You can't just sit there and look at something that's not working well and then not want to make any changes and then have your citizenry complain about how things are working and you have no solution to make the changes necessary to make it work better. Yeah, no. So, I think this would make democracy in this country work better. That's all. It'd make it work better. Because right now, too many of our people, too many of our citizens think, the Supreme Court their approval rating is in the toilet. If a president's approval rating is in the toilet, we can vote the president out. We can't do nothing to them Supreme Court justices. We gotta wait till Clarence Thomas, Is that fair to the citizenry? I don't believe it is.